Hello Year 10. Thought we'd look at something new. This will be our next topic, C4, chemical change. Back in C2 we looked at metallic bonding and how in metals the electrons leave the atoms and float around in between them. They're called delocalized, leaving behind a positive metal ion. This structure, the bonding of it, gives rise to certain properties, which I'm sure you will have heard of before at Key Stage 3. Things like metals are good conductors of heat and electricity because those delocalized electrons can move and carry thermal energy or an electrical charge. They're sonorous. That means that they can have a deep ringing sound. They are ductile. You can stretch them out into a long, thin cable. They are malleable. They can be bent and changed the shape of. Their arrangement of atoms is in rows and columns, dense, closely packed together. This gives them a high melting and boiling point. All of the metals, except for mercury, are solids at room temperature. 3 of the metals are magnetic: iron, cobalt and nickel. Most metals are found naturally in the Earth's crust, in rocks called ores. They are compounds and are chemically bonded to other elements. This is a picture of iron ore or hematite. There's lots of other different ores containing different types of metal. You will have come across the reactivity series at Key Stage 3. It is a list of how volatile and reactive each of the metals are, going from the least reactive at the bottom to the most reactive at the top. AQA say that you have to be able to fill in gaps in this reactivity series, not write it out in full. Here's a mnemonic to help you learn the order. Purple slime can make a careless zebra insane, learning how camels surprise gorillas. The reactivity series affects how we get metals out of their ores. At the bottom, very unreactive metals like platinum, gold and silver can occur native. They are found as pure metals in the ground and can just be picked up. The middle section of the reactivity series, if they are less reactive than carbon, can be extracted from their ores using reduction, which is what we're going to look at today. And then the very reactive metals at the top are extracted from their ores using electrolysis, which we will look at later on in this topic. So, some of the earliest discovered metals were the ones that are native, that you can literally go along and pan for, like gold and platinum, and pick up in their raw form, looking like metals. But the majority of the metals are found as a compound in an ore and need to be chemically separated before the metal can be used. Most metal ores are oxides, and to obtain the metal, the oxygen must be removed in a process called reduction. Reduction is the loss or removal of oxygen from a compound. Reduction is used to remove metals from its ore for the middle section of the reactivity series, normally zinc, iron, tin and lead. The metal oxide is heated up with carbon, and the carbon is able to steal or displace the oxygen from it, leaving you with pure metal and carbon dioxide. Carbon is often shown in the reactive series in a different colour. Here it's in red to show that it is a non-metal. For example, if you had lead oxide as an ore that you dug up out of the ground, you heated it up with some carbon, the lead would lose its oxygen. The carbon can steal it off it, leaving pure lead on its own. The lead oxide is said to be reduced. The carbon is said to be oxidized. Oxidation is the opposite of reduction and is the gain of oxygen, whereas reduction is the loss of oxygen. Fill in your worksheet using this information. So this happens on a massive scale in industry. They dig up iron oxide out of the ground and they take it to a processing plant where they use a blast furnace. This is an example of a blast furnace. They put massive amounts of raw materials in the top and heat it up to get pure iron out. So we've got our iron ore, our metal contained inside rocks. We've got coke. Coke is a form of coal or carbon that has been heated. And limestone, calcium carbonate. Once they are put into the blast furnace, hot air is blown into it, providing oxygen to burn the carbon and coke. It has to get really hot, over 1200 degrees, for this to happen. When the coke is burnt, carbon dioxide is formed. Carbon plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide then reacts with the coke to also form carbon monoxide, CO. The iron oxide is reduced using the carbon monoxide. So the carbon monoxide steals the oxygen off the iron oxide, leaving iron. The molten iron is then collected at the bottom and is about 96% pure. The limestone that was added reacts with other impurities from the rock like sand, and these are less dense than the iron and float to the top. It is known as slag and is drained off and is often used to form bitumen, which is used as a road surface covering. It also produces carbon dioxide and nitrogen. These gases are removed and then treated to make them less harmful for the environment and pollution. You're expected to know how a blast furnace happens or works. So we know carbon, the coke or coal, reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide reacts with coal to get carbon monoxide. This is where it gets a bit confusing. So we've made some carbon dioxide, that reacts with more coal to get carbon monoxide, CO, and then the carbon monoxide reacts with the iron ore to give the pure iron and carbon dioxide. Limestone reacts with the impurities to form slag, which is the waste product. It sort of glimmers silver as shown on the top of this picture. Using the worksheet, can you fill in the stages of a blast furnace in the correct order? To show how a blast furnace is used to extract pure iron from iron ore. In C2 we talked briefly about an alloy, and we'll come back to it in C4. An alloy is a mixture of a metal and another element. Steel is one of the most common examples of an alloy, and it contains iron mixed with carbon and other elements. When you add other elements to a metal, it changes its structure and therefore changes its properties. The alloy made might be completely different from the metal it's made out of. Changing the amount of the element you add can affect the properties of the alloy and allow it to be fit for a given job. Atoms in pure iron are arranged in nice neat rows and columns. These layers are able to slide past each other. It makes iron very soft and its shape can easily be distorted. So it isn't very strong, making it limited as what it can be used for. If you mix it with atoms of a different element, so normally carbon, those atoms are a different size and they distort the regular structure of the atom. You can see the big blue spheres in between the grey of the iron distorts its pattern, meaning the layers can't slide past each other. It can't be bent and misshaped as easily, making it much stronger. Steel can contain different amounts of carbon, normally up to about 2%. The different amounts of carbon give steel different properties. For example, more carbon makes the steel much harder. Different steels are classified by how much carbon they contain. You get low carbon steel that has less than 0.25%, high carbon with more than 0.5% of carbon, stainless steel where they add chromium and nickel, and titanium steel where they add titanium. These different types of steel with different amounts of carbon in them lead them to be good for different types of job. High carbon steel with lots of carbon makes it really strong and suitable for weapons like swords, whereas steel with chromium adding to it means it's resistant to corrosion and rust, so it's good for use as cutlery, saucepans that come into contact with moisture regularly. Thank you for listening.